Welcome back to the AI Breakdown Brief, all the AI headline news you need in 5 minutes or less. Today we kick off with a topic that is doing nothing but growing in importance, and that is, of course, questions around copyright when it comes to AI artwork. Now, the specific context we're going to talk about is Steam and Valve. However, it's useful to look at the state of the conversation more broadly a little bit as well. In the US, one of the big battles on this front has been Getty Images' lawsuit against Stability AI, saying that it used its images inappropriately to train their Stable Diffusion model. Getty, clearly being pretty serious with this challenge, also brought that same complaint to the courts in the UK. Meanwhile, taking a very different approach, reports suggest that Japan is saying that AI model training doesn't violate copyright. During a meeting of Japan's Financial Oversight Committee, Takashi Ki, a member of the House of Representatives for the Constitutional Democratic Party, said, "We asked questions about generative AI from two perspectives: copyright protection and utilization in educational settings. In Japan, works for information analysis can be used regardless of the method, whether for nonprofit purposes, for-profit, for acts other than reproduction, or for content obtained from illegal sites." So bringing it back to today's particular context, Valve has said that it will not approve Steam games that use AI artwork which could be seen as copyright infringing. Now, this actually started with rumors that Valve was taking an even harder line stance, saying that Steam would no longer publish games with any AI-generated content. However, in a statement that they sent to The Verge, Valve said that the company's goal is, quote, not to discourage the use of AI on Steam, but to be cautious when it comes to existing copyrighted artworks. Now, to me, this doesn't read as Valve taking some hardline stance one way or another, but instead just looks like a business who doesn't want to be on the front lines of a new legal battle and is just covering itself as it lets this battle play out in the political sphere. Now, other companies are addressing these same concerns, but doing so in a different way. You'll remember that last month when Adobe launched its Firefly generative AI suite, it came with a promise that it will cover legal bills related to copyright challenges for enterprises that use the Firefly product. Now let's move to a very different topic which has gotten a lot of people hyped, and that is Humane's AI pin. Now you might have seen this demo back in April from the TED conference. It shows a person using a wearable device that has, importantly, no screen to do a variety of interesting things. They take a phone call projecting the relevant information on their hand, they translate a sentence into a different language that still comes out in their voice, and there were various other aspects of the demo as well.
Let me show you something. Invisible devices should feel so natural to use that you almost forget about their existence.
Les appareils invisibles devraient sembler si naturels à utiliser. Vous oubliez presque leur existence.
You'll note that's me and my voice speaking fluent French, using an AI speech model that's part of my own AI. The future will not be held in your hand, and it won't be on your face either. The future of technology might almost be invisible. Thank you.
Now, more information is just slowly starting to roll out about this company and its product, and people are pretty excited. Humane was started by former Apple employees and has raised $200 million over the last couple years, and so expectations are really high. Still, there remain a lot of questions. As The Verge put it, other than the name, the only revealing thing about Humane's release today is that it used AI 22 times and that the pin, quote, uses a range of sensors that enable contextual and ambient compute interactions. But ultimately, The Verge remains, quote, unabashedly intrigued. They say it's a huge swing at a new form factor and potentially a whole new idea about how we're supposed to interact with technology. In a world increasingly full of screens, in our hands, on our bodies, even on our faces, Humane's going the other way, and it's going to be fascinating to watch. And in fact, that's one of the things that I think is really interesting about this. On the one hand, you have Apple putting this new form factor over our eyes more directly, and on the other hand, you have Humane running in the other direction, getting rid of screens entirely. It does feel in some ways like a battle for the future of how we interact with digital experiences, and I'm not sure that anyone knows yet which will win out. Moving over to markets for a moment, the big theme in many ways of the first half of 2023 has been the tension between divergent forces. On the one hand, we've had ever-present warnings of looming recession. We've had a Federal Reserve, which up until very recently has continued to hike interest rates even in the face of a banking crisis. And yet, at the same time, enthusiasm, particularly around artificial intelligence, has led markets to have a very good year. NPR writes, "It's been a hell of a year so far. 3 regional banks collapsed, the United States came close to defaulting on its debt for the first time in history, and the Federal Reserve continued to hike interest rates aggressively. But despite all that, the stock market surged in the first half of the year. What gives? NPR points to two different possible explanations. The first is that the longer there has been the promise of things like a recession, the less investors are behaving like it's going to happen. But at the same time, it really points to AI as the big driving force. The issue, of course, that they point out is that the stock market's gains have not been broad-based. They've been highly concentrated in tech stocks that relate in some way or another to AI. That creates a fragility if market narratives move in a different direction and the AI enthusiasm bubble starts to pop. Now, speaking of technology and Wall Street, Cathie Wood from ARK raised eyebrows in May when she said that the, quote, most impactful AI project might be Tesla's self-driving technology. This week in San Francisco, a battle looms over full self-driving technology as California is voting whether to allow 24/7 driverless cabs from the companies Waymo and Cruise. The California Public Utilities Commission will vote on July 13th, and they are widely expected to approve both companies' permit requests. Now, if full self-driving cars are an example of AI in practice, so too are the algorithms that dictate which content we get on platforms like TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. In a bid for more transparency, Meta has released some amount of information on how AI is used in those algorithms. Last week, Meta released 24 explainers that focus on various features of those platforms, including Instagram stories, Facebook's newsfeed, and more, that describes how the company determines which content to recommend to users. In a blog post from last Thursday, Meta's president of global affairs, Nick Clegg, wrote, "With rapid advances taking place with powerful technologies like generative AI, it's understandable that people are both excited by the possibilities and concerned about the risks. We believe that the best way to respond to those concerns is with openness." And lastly today, speaking of concern, the Arnold himself in a recent speech said that the AI future that Terminator had imagined is, quote, here today. Today, he said, everyone is frightened of it, of where this is going to go. If that is not tailor-made for headlines, I don't know what is. That's going to do it for today's AI Breakdown Brief. If you enjoyed this, please click on the thumbs up button and notifications down below so you don't miss any episodes. And I'll be back soon with the main AI Breakdown.